a very interesting guest today. I really feel like I don't want to sound like David Letterman, but really my guest needs no introduction. Okay, but for the people unfortunate, okay, who don't know him yet, we're gonna talk about him a little bit. He's owner of a strength and conditioning facility. He used to be. He's one of the pioneers in the strength and conditioning. As like one of the first to get into the field. Now I think we have a lot of people, but we're going to clarify a bit. Ahmed Alumran, ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
Hi.
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 Ahmed, let's start by talking a bit, just to give like the listeners a bit about yourself. So
probably a lot of people won't know me just because like I don't really advertise too much on like social media. Like it's not what I focus most of my attention on. You probably know this from like experience with me, is most of my attention goes towards like my clients, helping them kind of make change. But basically, just to kind of give you a brief, I'm the owner of Ahmed Strength and Conditioning. It's one of the first pure strength and conditioning facilities in Bahrain. I opened it around like 3 years ago and counting. It was first like a really small studio where you've seen it yourself, and basically from there we've now expanded to a space almost double the size in the same building, but we've kind of created our own system, and we've created a place for people to come and train and you do specifically strength and conditioning without and understanding the basics of like strength, basics of fitness, of health, and kind of moving from there and educating them through different means.
you said a small facility. I agree it's a small facility, but it's the biggest I've seen in Heart, to be honest.
Thanks.
It doesn't feel that small at all.
Yeah.
Once you get into it. I have a question though. You were an engineer before becoming a coach.
Yeah.
So it was always a question of why. Like, what made you want to become a coach?
Wallah, that's actually a really good question that most people don't know about me. But basically, when I was younger, I was into all like forms of activity and like sports and stuff like that in like high school. Like I went into like the football team, the basketball team, even though I'm really short.
You must have shoot 3 points all the time.
Yeah, seriously. Like I was more the defender because I couldn't really, and the quicker person. So I went into table tennis, like badminton, like all like. I played tennis, I went horse riding, like I went ice skating, I was like figure skating at one point. So like the whole thing. But you know, here in Bahrain, like when you graduate from high school, they're like, oh, what do you want to do? Like it's either like, are you good at math? Oh, become an engineer. Are you good at like biology? Oh, become a doctor. Or like, what was the last thing? Like, oh, you're good at English? Become a lawyer. Like, okay, fine. So I was good at maths, so they made me an engineer. I did the whole university experience. When I came back here, I started working with my dad. I really didn't enjoy it, but I kind of pushed through. And then from there, I was introduced to Khalid and Jassim, who were owners of Kinetic, who brought the strength and conditioning certification here to Bahrain. The first class I did, I absolutely loved it. Like it was like something that clicked in my brain, and from then on I was like, khalas, that's what I want to do. And then I slowly moved further and further away from my dad's business, and I started doing this.
So you were exploring. So you wanted to study, like you studied, but you didn't know where it was gonna end up going to.
Yeah.
But then you like felt it. Once you got a touch of it, you were like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Which is really amazing, because for a lot of people it would be like terrifying to make that choice.
Yeah.
You know?
Believe it or not, like I worked technically like 2 jobs for almost a year and a half to 2 years. So obviously, nice. Alhamdulillah, like my dad gave me the flexibility to work only like part-time. But what I used to do is I used to wake up at like 6 in the morning or like 5:30 in the morning, train someone at 6, finish with them at 7. I would go home, change, wear my suit, go to work, finish from work, and then like finish from after like from my dad in the afternoon, went home, had lunch, then started my training all up until like driving in my car and stuff like that, all up until like 8:39, and I would go to Starbucks and then study until like 11 o'clock, and I would do that on a daily basis.
That's intense.
Yeah, like proper
That's
intense. And it was but you know, the joy of doing it was really nice.
Definitely, I think when it boils down, it's all that effort, like when you just go to bed feeling that you've done the thing that you love, gives you kind of a sense of satisfaction. One of the things, because I was fortunate to work like almost a couple of years, almost 2 years to work like at your facility. I got to see a lot of things hand in hand, so we'll try to kind of bring people up to speed with all those things, because they touched me in a way where like it kind of made me rethink about how this industry is working and how all these things. Usually it would be like, it would be having like, I would never, if you asked me back in time that joining here would give me that much insight, I would have said definitely no. Not even 10% of that.
No one realizes.
Yes, but once you go into that, once you keep on going and you see like how things are actually done or should be done, and it's a work in progress, to be honest. But one of the things that I really liked is that how you have your slogan all over. It says leading by example. So like let us understand a bit, like tell us about your methodology. How do you differentiate? What do you think leading by example, like what do you stand behind that?
So that the whole concept of leading by example and like philosophy is that a lot of the time people give advice but they don't actually follow it themselves. And like for me, I really feel like whether it comes to you, whether it comes to parenting, whether it comes to whatever it is, right? Like if you're leading by example, you're helping people kind of follow a specific way. And when you guide them to, okay, this is how I do things, this is how I felt is the best way, and I haven't come across any other way that's better, that's why I'm doing it this way. Really, people start to believe in you and like believe in the concepts and the philosophies and the training that we do. And that's where you were talking about the philosophy of training, Annie, which is very unique to, like no other place does it, right? Like the way we do it there, so which is really cool.
But the thing I liked about it the most is that you'd think from reading that line, or you'd think from seeing that slogan, or you'd think from being anywhere around that, you'd think that it would preach about like idealism, it would speak about being perfect or perfectionism. But actually it's not. It's like in a lot of factors I see like acceptance, whether it is in any aspect of like a certain lifestyle. It can be perfect, it can be like you have to kind of embrace those flaws and be okay with them, and understanding the cost of going into that perfection, how hard it is, and how like almost impractical for you to be on that manner. And that's the thing that stuck with me the most, to be honest.
As you said, like most people come into the gym and they think it's like a very standard gym, but then when they start to hear how we talk about training, how we talk about like their environment, how they talk about their lives in general, they start to really like question and say like, okay, this is a little bit different. Like this person isn't telling me that you need to go 100%, like don't quit and start yelling at the person. La, بالعكس, we are much more empathetic and understanding that everyone has certain struggles in their lives, and like you have to take that into consideration and make sure that they don't feel like you're not understanding their perspective, which is whether it's like having kids, having like a ridiculous day job, whether it's having like a really bad sleep pattern that you just can't get out of, you know, like there's so many things that you have to take into consideration that at least in our gym we say like, okay, we understand this, right? But this is the best practice, but we understand where you're coming from. Let's see how we can get you from here to a little bit further on the continuum. We don't want you to be perfect, because perfect is not sustainable. That's the number one thing. But you're here, let's go a little bit further. Or let's get a little bit stronger, or let's get a little bit healthier, or let's make sure the habits are working well, whatever it may be, Annie.
this question I gotta ask. How did a dog become the face of your gym? How did Charlie become?
Well, that's a good
Was
question.
it from the beginning? Like,
Yeah.
who came first, the gym or the dog?
The dog. The dog came first, صراحة. Like, so when I first started training people, and then I realized that driving to people's cars, to people's houses wasn't sustainable, I decided to bring some people to the house. And I didn't really have a place to train. So literally my room became my gym.
Oh,
Like
wow.
my room, my bed was still there. And I put like black mats on the other side of my bed. I put a pull-up bar. I still have the stuff there. And Charlie used to sleep in my room. So like whenever someone would walk in, it's Charlie's there. So متعود خلاص, he knows that people are gonna come in. So when I used to bring him to the gym, he's cool with it, and he learned not to be misbehave or stuff like that in the gym. He just sits there and sleeps, which is a really good example.
But he really contributes more than he thinks, I think. More than anybody can think of.
More of a psychological contribution. Like you feel good when you walk.
But it's nice. And one other thing that I really like saw, I haven't seen in any other place, is game week.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like it's like the smartest thing, the sneakiest, smartest thing that you could do. You know, it's really nice, it's fun, and you could get people to deload in that week, you know, and and I was mind blown, to be honest, when I first realized that like the purpose and the objective.
Without realizing, right? Like
Exactly.
like
And it comes so natural.
Yeah.
It comes so natural. Nobody knows nobody hates that game week, but everybody looks up to it. And you get them into that challenging kind of mode where they kind of reflect on the 6 weeks or the previous cycle that they've done.
Yeah. Believe it or not, people still, like, some people do dwell it because they don't like the competitive side. But they like the game week because they like to do, now we're doing more like, recently, like more measurements. So we've done vertical jumps before, right? Like we're assessing the vertical jumps every 6 weeks to make sure that someone's vertical jump is staying the same or going higher, right? Then we're assessing like girth measurements now, because we have the office, we can bring people in, we can measure people. We're also assessing like how are people doing by saying like, hey, how did the last program go? Did it feel easy? And you've seen it yourself, yani. Then there's the competitive side. And as you said, there's the play aspect to it, which is a lot of people are so serious all the time, right? Like at work, it's serious. At home, it's serious. It's always serious. That having like a week of play, it's nice. It's like a تغيير جو, you know? So in regards to then the deloading, as you said, which I never mentioned to people, right? Like you just train 6 weeks really hard. Give yourself a little bit of a break.
A breather.
Now I started introducing things that, like for example, like 120 kettlebell swings over like a 12-minute period, like 10 reps and then rest, 10 reps rest, just so that people understand that they can push themselves far beyond what they think they're capable of, because they're like, oh, I only do 3 sets of kettlebell swings with this weight. Like, okay, let's do 120 12 sets or 120 reps, see how you feel. They're like, oh, it's okay. And I was like, okay, that means that this weight is light, right? So it's a nice way for people to really click in their brain, so which is cool.
I hear you're a mad Super Smash game.
How do you know? How do you know?
Someone really close to you told me, you know, a little birdie.
Yeah.
No, actually, it was really a fun moment because your wife was super mad, I think, because she came a session and you just left before the session. And I think she was expecting you there, but it was me.
Probably, actually.
So she was like, I bet he just went back home to play Super Smash.
Probably true, actually, Yani. It's probably true. I got into it recently during COVID, صراحة. Like I wasn't that into it. I used to go with my friends once a week, but then later on during COVID, because متملل وما قاعد أسوي شيء, I finished The Witcher, so I was like, يلا, let's go, let's play Smash.
The Witcher, the book or the series?
I finished both, صراحة.
Which is better? I'm surprised because I get really conflicted views about the series.
Two of the book is the earlier versions, and then basically what happens is the books finish, then the video games 1, 2, and 3 come out.
Okay.
يعني completely different.
Speaking of COVID,
Yeah.
it's not a fun topic, but it's a very interesting thing to talk about, like the coach perspective, the business side perspective. Like it must have been dreadful for you, must have been hard for you. I have witnessed some of it, but not a lot of it. So how was it? Like it was a big challenge to communicate with the clients first.
Yeah. I think it was a really big challenge from the business perspective, but also from like trying to help people just stay moving and remotely and things like that.
Because priorities were different at that especially at the beginning. Priorities were different for people.
Exactly. People had kids that they have to take care of now, like the whole day. Imagine now, before they could go to school and they just leave their kids there and they're tired, right? Like at the end of the day, their kids after going to school, so they come home drained. Now the kid is like energetic the whole day. So like I've seen a lot of parents struggle, so it's understandable, and people were just generally just super scared, when it came to it, so which is understandable.
And how was it at first? Like because it was a very smart thing to do the the virtual classes and the remote coaching.
Yeah.
But definitely coaching from a screen is not as easy as coaching in person.
Yeah. 100%. And like it was a challenge. I got used to it now, and I know people, because like let's say for example a certain client, right? You know that he has a issue with his squat, right? Because you've seen him in the gym. So you know that when he's doing his split squats on the screen, you tap on the screen, you try to look a little bit and see like, okay, is he doing the same things he used to do in the gym? If he is, you can say like, hey, X, like make sure to fix this or fix that. Like you have an idea, which is good, but if it's a new client remote, you have to be really vigilant and make sure that they're not doing anything wrong, because at the end of the day, it's your responsibility, right?
Exactly.
Any injury in your space is your responsibility, which a lot of people don't agree with, but that's like how my standpoint. So,
and I've seen it in a lot of, like with a lot of coaches. Usually, I think we see a lot of the coaches refusing to take ownership of any injury or of any kind of an incident that happens. And actually it's supposed to be the other way around. You see a lot of coaches thinking that, okay, they'll motivate clients to try something. They'll slip on watching the thing that led to the injury, and then they'll say, oh, you pushed yourself too hard.
You're guiding him, right, at the end of the day. So you should be able to assess and say like, okay, should I be watching him doing this exercise? Like, what is the risk of me not watching that person, right? And then figuring out, okay, if there's a group of people, what is the main exercise that I should be watching, so that that's the exercise that most likely people will get hurt in. You know what I mean? So it's about like being smart with your logistics and like being smart with how you structure your space. But as you said, like taking ownership, it's very hard for people, because they're like, oh no, but there's so many people and you should know how much you should lift. And I'm like, no, that's not their job, right? Like it's your job to know how much somebody's supposed to lift. And this was actually recommended by, I don't know if you know Dr. John Berardi, the owner of Precision Nutrition, or co-owner, previous owner. But he actually said that once he said it to me, in his textbook or something like that, and it just clicked to me. I was like, oh, okay, fine. Like anything that happens that's wrong, it's on me. Even if I'm not even in the gym now. So let's say, for example, I'm not in the gym now, but let's say Zainal is there and he's training somebody, and somebody gets hurt. That's also on me.
True.
Right? Because I didn't give Zainal enough information to be able to coach this client to prevent him from getting injured. So it's like remember I showed you this book about extreme ownership. That you have to take ownership for everything and say, okay, fine, it's my mistake, but how can I improve for next time, so that if I'm not in the gym, I make sure that Zainal's doing it right, so that the client does it right.